So here we have
Good about
everybody.
doing things like this. Yeah.
It's 5:15.
All right, it's 5:15, so we'll go ahead and open the meeting. This is the April 2nd meeting, April 2nd, 2024 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals Zoning. Present here today are Allison Grass, Robin Richards, Bill Goodwin Jr., Chappie McKay, and me, your chair, Jeff Tibbles. Present from the planning staff are Lee Batchelder, Penny Ashby, and Emma McQuarrie. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak, please identify yourself for the record. We will conduct this meeting in the usual fashion. We will first receive information from city staff about the application and the recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, the matter is uncontested. The Board of Zoning Appeals usually, but not always, approves uncontested applications. For all applications, the board reserves the right to ask questions of the staff, applicant, or others in attendance prior to rendering a decision. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested. Hear from the applicant and anyone else who is in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We will then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals zoning has the authority to do three things. Number one, hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Number two, grant special exceptions, a fact-finding function of the board. And number three, grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present shall be required before a use variance may be granted. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. So we will, we have no deferrals this evening. I am required by the city ordinance to ask that anyone who intends to speak this evening swear to tell the truth. So if you do intend to speak, please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. You'll signify by saying, "I do." Thank you. All right, we'll get into the agenda. Item A1 on the agenda, review of minutes and deferred applications from previously advertised BZA-Z agendas. Number one, review of minutes of the March 19, 2024 meeting. Draft of those minutes is in the packet of materials that was distributed to the board members. And I believe that we have everybody here who attended last time, so except for Ms. Grass. So we still do have a quorum, and we're able to approve the minutes. Do I have a motion? I make a motion. All right, Mr. McKay moves to approve. Ms. Richards seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. Ms. Grass abstained because she was not present at the last meeting. The next item on our agenda, A2, 1407 Downing Street, Ashley Hall Manor, Council District 9, TMS number 352-14-00-112, zoned SR1, requesting a variance after the fact from section 54-301 to allow an existing 6-foot tall fence to be extended to 8 feet, 6-foot height limit. The owner applicant, Patricia Lewis and Thomas Bryan. Mr. Batchelder.
This was heard at the last meeting and deferred to allow the applicant to submit additional information. Review it with me, and I've done that, but the background is that this is a residential property in Ashley Hall Manor, a neighborhood in West Ashley, and residentially zoned property. This is an aerial view showing the location right off Sam Wittenberg. There's a zoning map view. And so their complaint was received that I think the fence had been extended to 8 feet in height. This is the 6-foot fence that was there without coming through the city to obtain permits. So that's when we began pursuing this with the owners of the property, and they then filed the application to seek the variance to keep the fence at the 8-foot height. And there are photographs of that existing fence with the extender on top as well. Later on, I'll get to those. And so that's what brings us here tonight. And I think this was a building permit that was issued for the 6-foot fence a number of years ago, and the site plan that was used for that permit. And this is the application for the variance and information that they submitted with their application, photographs. And so these are the photos of what's there. And so you don't see the whole fence with this van parked here in the driveway, but the fence comes out to right here, the 6-foot fence. And so the extension to 8 feet comes all the way out into the front yard. And here's a view of that section of the fence. Then it wraps around the backyard and sides, the other side as well. And so here is the fence right here. You can kind of see it, this car. And again, extends beyond the front of the house into the front yard. So one thing that they did was the applicants did say that there were other properties in the neighborhood that had fences that were taller than 6 feet. And so they did provide that information to me after the last meeting. I guess this was a month ago when we heard this. And so this map indicates the property addresses that they gave me in their email. And I looked at those. Now, 2 of these, this one right here off of Orange Grove Road, that's one of the properties that the board granted a variance to allow a taller fence along the rear portion of the backyard. So just along the sides and the rear along Orange Grove Road. This one I know has been here for a while. That one's been there. There's no indication of any permits for that one, but that is just along Orange Grove Road as far as I can tell. And then here's one that we found, or that was included on their list, and that one also came before the board, but at that hearing, we realized that there was an existing tall fence on the property, and under the ordinance, if you've got a fence that's taller than 6 feet on your property, you can extend that fence on your property at the same height, even though it might exceed the 6-foot height limit. So we have that exception. That was really written because of the situation on the peninsula where, of course, we have lots of historic homes that have walls that exceed 6 feet in height. In fact, some of them are 10 feet in height. So that was written for that situation, but it applies elsewhere as well, applies throughout the city. So these other properties are all properties that they gave me addresses, and here's the other part of the neighborhood down here. Some of these up here are duplicates because map overlap, but I went back and I looked at these addresses and in some respects, I think these along Orange Grove were mostly, at least the ones that I could see were mostly along Orange Grove Road, I think. But then there are a few like this one that you can clearly see from the street. And this, it's hard to see this, but this section of the fence right here is clearly above 6 feet and looks to be 8 feet in height. And this one, I'm not sure how long it's been there, but there's no record of any city permits for that. Another one right here, this fence right here along the side property line. Going back, that fence is, appears to be 8 feet. Looking at it because of just comparing the height of this fence to the eave down to where I think the first floor elevation is. It looks roughly equivalent to that, and that would be 8 feet or so. Another example of a fence, and then here's one on Manor Boulevard. Manor is the street that parallels Sam Rittenberg. And so here's this section of fence right here. You can clearly see from Manor Boulevard. So there are other fences in the neighborhood that that exceed 6 feet in height. Some of those addresses that they gave me, I could not see anything from the street. So maybe they're in the backyard somewhere, but so my thought was that I think the most offensive part of the fence that's there today with that extender is the portion that extends into the front. I don't think we've heard from anybody that we know of that's an abutting neighbor to this property who does not or is opposed to this application. But I think the fence portion that extends beyond the front wall of the house, you know, into the front yard, being taller than 6 feet is clearly not consistent with anything else in the neighborhood. And so my thought was that that I would be willing to support the variance to allow the fence that's there around the side and the rear of the house, but that the portion of the fence that is forward of the front wall, if you draw a line across the front wall of that house to the side property lines, that from that point forward, the fence should not be taller than 6 feet. And so this is just meant to illustrate roughly what that means, I think, which would be somewhere in this area right here. You cut the extender off and return it to 6 feet in height, and same thing on this side. And in plan view, this is what I'm suggesting is a potential compromise. So this is the front wall of the house, and just extend that over to the side property lines. So I don't know if any of these neighbors are opposed. I think this neighbor right here, I believe, wrote a letter of support, which is in the public comments, that, or at least they don't object for that one, I think. So, so that's where I came down on this. If the board is willing to support variance, that maybe that would be a way to do it in a manner that's not inconsistent with some of the other properties that we have in the neighborhood.
All right, thank you, Lee. Is there anyone present here this evening opposed to the application for 1407 Downing Street? All right, yes, sir. We'll get to you in just a moment. Do we have the owners applicants here? Yes. Anything you'd like to address with the board?
We just will go with whatever you guys decide.
Anybody else here to speak in support of the application? All right, seeing no one else in support, sir, please stand up and state your name and address for that. Here. Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Michael Alvin, and I live in the neighborhood, Ashland Hall Manor. And I was neighborhood president in 2006 until this past September, when I resigned, because my neighborhood, you know, our neighborhood pretty well. We've tried for years to revitalize, the best we can to revitalize it. The city's worked with us very well with our flooding projects, with our livability issues, signage, our crime watch signs, everything we've done has been positive. And when I inquired about this other, the first home on First and Orange Grove, I thought it was a nice fence, and my fence is 6 feet, and I need to replace it at some point in the future, in the near future. And I simply inquired about that fence. How do you go about getting an 8-foot fence? And I was told a variance was given, which is fine, looks great. Then, about back in November, I saw this one with the topper put up, and I said, what is that? I never knew what that was. So I went and inquired about it, and I just simply inquired about it because I said, well, if we could do 8-foot fences in the neighborhood, then maybe I'll raise mine up. I don't really want 8-foot fence. I like 6 foot, and I'll probably go with that. But when I went to inquire about it, I don't know if you guys saw the Facebook neighborhood page. These folks here went out and asked, do you need to have a permit for this? Do you have to, they were acting after the fact, and they've denigrated me and this board since then. And so is the other, the second home that you allowed at 14 and 11 Southbury Street. They've come on the Facebook page, and I'm now banned from the Facebook page. I can't even answer back and defend myself. And I never was opposed to an 8-foot fence. I was just inquiring about it. But when they someone FOIA'd and my name was given out, then they started attacking me. And that's fine. I'm used to attacks over these years as president. But the principle is, if we're gonna start allowing 8-foot fences, then I would like to, my neighbors in the next neighborhood over are asking about it as well. Can we put 8-foot fences up? I said, well, I don't know. You'll have to go before the board, but it looks like they were granting these to happen. And you can do it after the fact, do it and ask for mercy. And I don't have any problem with the fences. I didn't have a problem with this one. I thought if he would have painted the fence, maybe that would have blended in. It's up there. Nobody wants to make them go back and take it down or anything like that. But I'm opposed to it because of the principle of how this has been carried out. And I think it sets a precedent up for the rest of, if the city ordinance is 6 feet, a lot of these fences were put up. There's no permits that were put up. I've lived in that neighborhood since '89. A lot of those fences were just put up. No, they didn't, and they just put them up. And they don't, they're not abiding by the city ordinances. And that's part of my opposition to this. All that we've tried to do to make our neighborhood, single family neighborhoods, which are being under attack where we live, is defend this neighborhood. And so I just wanted to say I'm opposed to it. I'm not opposed to these folks here or anything, but I just didn't appreciate the attacks. My name's been out there, I've been libeled, and it's not the way to be neighborly. I would be fine, it looks great, the house is beautiful, everything's great about it, I hope they get it sold. But they shouldn't do it this way, you shouldn't attack neighbors. When I know that the neighbor on the one side is totally opposed to it. They put in here how he's got a nasty house, and the home is not, next to him, they can't sell it because of him. And the noise on the street, there's no street noise. We all get street noise. I live on Boundary Street. We get street noise, but it's not an excuse to say I put up a fence and ask for forgiveness afterwards. So, whatever you do is fine. I just want to make my.
Would you bring those
my
materials up, please?
Pardon?
Would you mind bringing those materials up here?
This year?
Yes, please.
Oh, yeah. Keep this.
Thank you.
And that's all I have to say.
Thank you very much, sir. All right, do you have any response, any rebuttal?
I do.
Okay,
I've never mentioned anybody's name in there. Another neighbor mentioned this person's name, but I did not. But I did say whoever did this was a jerk. And if I was told through the Facebook page that this person has done this to several other persons in the neighborhood. This is what other people responding to me said, because I was asking about the fence ordinance.
We did not just throw up the fence. We hired a fence company. And assumed
on our.
They're
property.
in business that I told him he needed to get the permits and whatever. And I never checked back with him. I guess that's my fault. We thought we were doing right. It's not that we just went in there and threw it up.
Okay, we will close the public hearing portion and open for board discussion. Any questions for city? Any questions for the owners or applicant or the opposition?
I do have a question as far as the reason why you wanted to raise it.
Because there's so much road noise, we're like about 150 feet off the Sam Rittenberg. We wanted to try to deter the noise a little bit because we were trying to put our house up for sale. And every person's that did come to the house, the number one response was, love the house, hate the road noise. And so that's one reason why, that's the main reason why we wanted to put it up. And we honestly did, and we did bring the information before. I think I put the name of the fence company in there. And it is still our responsibility because they did not get a permit. We understand that.
I have a question for Mr. Batchelder. The fences that were raised came before the board and were raised to 8 feet. Were all along the rear of the properties. Is that correct? Or were any?
Well,
of
the
them-
one variance that we have granted was at the rear of the property along Orange Grove and then
Mhm.
just a few feet on the sides.
but
Adjacent to
not
that,
extending all the way to the front.
not extending, not even extending all the way across the backyard.
If they're given a variance, how do we know that they'll correct the fence?
We can send pictures back.
Well, that would be up to us to make sure that they follow through and we would do that.
Gotcha. And is the, do you know if the fence, I'm sorry, do you know if the fence is still two-toned? Did they paint the top of the fence?
I don't know. I think it's still,
It's still.
it's not
natural.
painted.
It's not.
Is the intent to paint it?
We may do that, yes,
We
sir.
were told we needed to wait a couple of months because it was wet.
Right.
Lee, what do you think about this setting a precedence for these types of fences coming back? That's my fear. is
Yeah,
that,
that-
you know,
that's
I mean,
certainly
it
a
seems to me that the
possibility.
character of the neighborhood is more a 6-foot fence.
Yeah. Well,
And that-
that's a possibility. You know, this is just I think 6 feet is unreasonable personally. I think we ought to allow taller fences
Oh, you
on the
do?
sides of the houses and backyards. And I will be advocating for that to the extent that I will be here and be doing that for the new zoning ordinance. We allow taller fences on Daniel Island. We allowed 7-foot fences on the peninsula because they're within the BAR's jurisdiction. And we have that provision where you can extend the fence that's taller than whatever our limit is. So I think 6 feet's a little bit unreasonable personally. And the other thing is the city of Charleston has grown a lot and we've extended into areas that are mostly unincorporated areas subject to Charleston County regulations. Berkeley County as well, although a lot of Charleston County areas and the town of James Island areas. And both of those jurisdictions have standards for fences that are taller. They allow taller fences than we do. So that's been one of the reasons for supporting other variances because isolated property in a neighborhood in the city is surrounded by properties that are not subject to the same rules, and it just seems unreasonable to hold those people to a more strict standard than their neighbors.
we have, precedent for granting after the fact, variances on fencing heights. Is that something that this board has done?
I don't recall specific locations where we've done that, but but that doesn't mean we haven't done it. My guess is there's probably been a few cases like this. Yeah, or at least supported some compromise. But and we don't know, and again, I don't know exactly, I think, wasn't there a letter from one of the immediate neighbors of this property
On either side.
On both sides.
that did not
They signed
object?
a letter That they were.
Did not object. Then you got two other adjoining property owners, I think.
We couldn't get them to answer the door.
Okay. Yeah, 1413. Yeah. That's this.
Well, I wonder if the property that was, the application that was granted, the increase in height, if they had requested the sides as well. Just, if it weren't just the back, the one that was granted the permit.
The
I wonder
one
if they had requested for also the sides of the house and they
No.
were not allowed
That-
to do it.
when he came in, I think he had a specific location where he wanted to build the polar fence along the rear property lines adjacent to Orange Grove. And then for a short distance on at least one side, but was it on the other side too? I don't remember if it was on the other side that's adjacent to the neighboring property. But it was on the other side. I know it was along the side property line adjacent to the side street where you come off Orange Grove, but again, not the full length of the backyard. So
Lee, in your opinion, is it a quality fence?
it probably, I think it appears to be and I agree, you don't want to paint treated wood right after you put it up, you gotta let it dry out. And perhaps if it was stained to match the color of the existing fence. After, it's ready for staining, that would be. Painting, whatever it is. That would certainly improve the appearance.
Did you think at all of having it, if you are saying you're in favor of the 8 feet along the sides, perhaps not having 8 feet in the front, across the front?
Well, yeah, that's what I was saying here is. So forward of these lines, because these are the portions of the fence that extend beyond the front of the house towards the street. I think for these portions, you definitely don't want to prove a variance because that would be inconsistent with anything else.
But what about on the sides of the house?
Well, there are some that have ones that are taller on the sides of the house, and again, that's.
Yeah, or maybe they wouldn't be enclosing the house.
Which
Look at
they're
on
not
either
gonna come, I
side,
know what
yeah,
you're saying, it's not gonna come perpendicular.
right,
So you're
Back
saying
into-
like how you drew it right there.
like this.
So that would not be a fence. Those would not be fences.
Those red
Oh,
lines.
this would not, this
Right.
would be a fence. Oh,
It
yeah.
would.
I'm just saying, this illustrates where the line should be for this fence
Right,
to be
and I'm
lower.
wondering if that part that you've drawn in red is also gonna be built with fencing.
Well, there's a driveway here, so I don't think they would cover their driveway with a fence.
4-foot chain.
It's 4-foot chain link, okay. I don't. The variance would not apply to that section.
Okay.
If
Just
they
the
wanted to
sides
build a
of the
fence
back.
along here and here, it would not apply there.
further thoughts or discussion?
I'll make a motion for approval of the 8-foot fence with the removal of the topper at the front facade of the house as illustrated in this TMS map. And that the work be completed within 90 days and the topper stained as they proposed. So it's not a detriment to the neighborhood.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. Mr. McKay has moved to approve the variance on the condition that the 8-foot portion of the fence shall not extend beyond the front of the home as depicted on the illustrations prepared by Mr. Batchelder. That the work be completed in 90 days and that the topper be stained to match the existing fence. Is that
On both sides.
fair
Sorry,
restoration?
on both sides.
We have a second. I wish to second the motion. All right. Looks like that motion may not get any further. Is there another motion?
Mr. Howard, let me ask you a question. So, you're okay with the quality of the fence? You're okay with the quality of the fence?
That's fine. The fence, the fence itself that was up there was fine.
It
I never
appears like, I guess, what street is that? Running parallel, that's, Sam Rittenberg?
Sam Rittenberg.
Sam Rittenberg is pretty close to where the house is. So I can understand you get noise. Is it a detriment to the rest of the properties? So that's what I'm thinking, whether it's a detriment or not. If there is quality of construction, and if we feel like it's going to be not a detriment in what it looks like, we got 2 neighboring properties who have sent approval on both sides.
Right, these 2 properties indicate by the letter that they signed that they don't object.
Typically fences and appraisal thought process are not gonna harm value to the point that it hurts everybody else unless it's not typical of the neighborhood. So we've seen other.
That's it. It's not typical. Sorry.
Got you. I got you. What we're saying there is it a quality fence? Is it gonna look like the rest of what the other fence look like? And then is it gonna be a detriment to other properties and values? That's what we gotta decide, whether that's the case. And we don't have neighbors disapproving other than, well, not the adjoining.
Well, it has to meet all 4 elements of the test in order to get a variance, and that's true no matter whether the variance is applied for before or if the variance is applied for after the fact. You have to meet all 4 criteria. Exceptional, extraordinary conditions pertaining to a particular piece of property. Go through them again, but for us to grant a variance, we have to find that all 4 of those criteria are established. All 4 of those criteria. So that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to that particular piece of property. that don't generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Because of those conditions, the application effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property, and that the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. So all four of those have to be met, whether they come in advance or they come after the fact. You can't treat somebody that comes in after the fact any differently than we would treat somebody asking for approval in advance. Again, by motion, and if nobody makes a motion, if no action is taken on the application will not pass.
I'm struggling with the hardship question as far as variance and also what Ms. Richards, brought up about setting a precedent. And I would be, since we have approved fences along the rear of properties, I would be okay with making a motion for the fence to stay along the rear, but not approve the sides, the fencing along the sides of the property.
Okay, is that a motion or is that
Yes.
thinking about motion?
I mean, it
All
is,
right.
yes.
So Ms. Grass has moved to approve the variance with the condition that the variance for the 8-foot portion of the fence be only along the rear of the fence structure and not on the sides or the front. So we're talking about one straight portion of the fence in the back,
Well,
correct?
it doesn't look like it's straight.
No.
It's,
You're saying these two sides, right?
yeah.
And that's what we approved for that other one that backed up on Orange Grove.
All right, does that motion have a second?
Yeah. I'll second that.
All right, Ms. Richards will second the motion. That will enable us to vote. So again, the motion is to approve the variance, but only with respect to the rear portions of the fence along the property line, and not on the sides.
And just, I guess, just to clarify, just the extension, the 6 feet, that remains, right?
Sorry, I'm not sure.
In other
We're only
words, you're not
talking about
asking-
the
well, we're only-
extension in height.
We're only granting, if the motion passes, we would grant a variance only with respect to the rear portion of the fence, which would mean that the topper would need to be removed
Right,
on all
On the
portions of the
but the
fence,
fence remains
other
along.
than in the
right.
rear. All right, so that motion has been made. Ms. Richardson seconded the motion. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Mr. Goodwin is opposed. The motion passes. The variance is granted under the condition that the 8-foot portion of the fence is going to be limited to the rear of the lot on, and may not apply to the sides, and therefore the 8-foot fence is not permitted along the sides of the property, and the topper will need to be removed from the sides of the fence, but can remain in the rear. Thank you.
Point out what you're calling that.
So it's these two sections of the property line.
That's defeating the purpose of whatever we did it.
That's
Because
Decision.
this side here is Sam Road.
That's the decision of the board, so. Have an opportunity to ask the board to reconsider. You have the opportunity to appeal the board's decision. Thank you. You'll have to consult with the zoning ordinance and or talk with Lee about that, when a hearing on a motion for reconsideration is scheduled. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda. B, new applications, 10 West Edge Street, Suite 200, West Side, Council District 6, TMS number 460-00-00-00-040, zoned MU2, WH, requesting the second one-year extension of a vested right that expires May 4th, 2024 pursuant to section 54-962. Vested right pertains to a special exception granted with conditions under section 54-506Y to allow a late night use restaurant and bar within 500 feet of a residentially zoned district. The owner is Mount Pleasant Investments LLC. The applicant is Michael Nixon. Mr. Batchelder.
This approval concerns the West Edge building, which is located here on the map, and specifically it applies to this corner space on the ground floor. So there's a corner space that, as far as I know, is not occupied today. It is in section of the building that has storefronts along the entire front along West Edge Street, including Publix. That's the main entrance to the Publix store. But this section right here has a space with some outdoor areas as well. This is a view. You don't really see it, but it's down in this section right here, building. And the approval was to allow late night use there, a use that would operate beyond midnight. And that was approved with conditions. And this is the map. So the public store is right here. Yeah, and then there's the open air area right here. So and this is simply a request to extend that vested right. It satisfies all the requirements of the section, the zoning ordinance dealing with vested rights. So our recommendation is for extension, 1-year extension.
Okay, thank you, Lee. And there have been no intervening changes in the zoning ordinance that would change the situation on the special exception.
No, they're not.
All right, do we have anybody in opposition? Owner applicant here? Anything you'd like to say?
Just here for moral support.
All right. Thank you. Do I hear a motion?
Motion.
I move to approve by Mr. Goodwin. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes and the special exception extension is granted. Thank you. Next item on our agenda, B2, 50 North Market Street, Peninsula, Council District 8, TMS number 458-05-03-046, zoned GB, requesting a special exception under section 54-511 to allow 681 square feet of interior patron use area without providing the required parking spaces. 5 spaces are required. The owner is L&M LLC. The applicant is Goff D'Antonio Associates, Tony Giuliani. Mr. Batchelder.
This application concerns Henry's on the market. And the zoning map shows you that this is the property we're talking about, 50 North Market Street. But 50 North Market Street and 54 North Market Street, adjacent to it, are both owned by the same people that own Henry's, and they would like to expand Henry's, that use, into the ground floor space of this building. The upper floors of this building are already used as part of Henry's, but they would like to expand the ground floor into the ground floor area of this building, which is currently occupied as a retail space. And so converting this space from retail to a restaurant requires more parking. And out of an abundance of caution, I'm not even grandfathering the spaces that were there for the retail space. So the number that's on the ordinance, on the agenda, 5 parking spaces, that is the requirement for the entire space that they're proposing to use for the restaurants. I think the retail use of this space required 2 spaces. So you see there's an increase that has to come through the board. And I know that they communicated with the Anson Borough Neighborhood Association, and my understanding is that the neighborhood association is not opposing this. And one other thing, I was told that this was once part of Henry's, and I actually looked at the website, and of course, this is the view today, and you see this is the building. Well, hold on. So this is existing Henry's on the ground floor and upper floors. And then here's the building we're talking about. Ground floor has been retail for a number of years. And then upstairs is part of Henry's. But on the website, there's a photograph of the original Henry's, and it includes these 2 spaces that are currently Henry's and the 3rd space right here. So it was truly once part of Henry's on the ground floor. So this is a special exception, not a variance. They satisfy the special exception requirements. There's simply no other place to lease any parking in that area. It's all spoken for and will be disappearing in the not too distant future when hotels get built. So it's a use that's allowed by the zoning, and they meet the requirements of that special exception test. So my recommendation is for approval.
All right, thank you, Lee. Anyone here in opposition to the request at 50 North Market Street? Do we have the owner applicant here?
Yes. I'd just like to say a few words.
Yes, sir, please.
Tony Giuliani with Golf Antonio. Yeah, can you make the floor plan, please? As Lee said, this was originally part of Henry's. This space was here up into the 90s. And because of the economy, they had to lease it out to help pay bills. So, and it was multiple different uses. It's been vacant now for over a year. And now with the economy doing better for those guys, they decided to go ahead and incorporate it back into their space. So you can say Henry's was around since 1932. We just keep going, do some fantastic job. And there is no parking. It's like we said. I mean, it's there's none around to me. So I guess pretty much Lee said everything in regards to that, but they do have the entire building. So they want to go ahead and take it all back. So that's why they're going to take at least early part of the year. We extended back their kitchen back into this space. And during the renovations, it was decided to go ahead and let's go ahead and take the rest of the space. So, that's really how I wanted that.
Thank you, Mr. Giuliani. All right. Anybody else in support? All right. So questions, discussion. Lee, if they, part of the special exception criteria is that there's no available parking. Is that what I understand?
Well, it has to be an allowed use. The applicant has to make good faith efforts to locate parking. And I just know that there's no opportunities for any kind of lease parking in that area with plans that people have and the changes that are about to happen. Of course, there is public parking nearby on the streets and garages, that sort of thing. So Um, And that there would not be any adverse impacts. That's another part of the test, is that it won't adversely affect neighboring properties or area. And like I said, Anson, but this is technically within the Anson Borough Neighborhood Association boundary, because they come all the way down to Market Street. And they do involve themselves and have done that with all the applications for major changes on Market Street. And have required, and applicants have had to come up with compromises to satisfy them. And, but in this case, this is a very small change to an establishment that's been there for a long time.
Okay, and so we haven't gotten any objections from Anson Borough Neighborhood Association?
No. They would let me know.
Okay.
They would definitely.
You're confident they're aware of this application?
Yes, absolutely.
Could you go back? Could I just see the slide as it is and then the older slide that you showed? I just wanted to see the, so this is how it is now.
This was, I guess this was a 3-story building.
And I'm just curious, so the part that you're talking about is in white,
It's this storefront right
that
here.
storefront there.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, I mean, I hate to see retail give way to food and bev, but will you leave that as it is, or will you be redoing the facade as well?
Right now, we're leaving it as is.
I was just curious, I know that's not our business. That did look nice.
All right, is anybody have any more questions for Lee or for the owner applicant? All right, Ms. Grass moves to approve. Do I have a second? Mr. McKay seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the special exception for 50 North Market Street is granted. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda, I'm gonna have to recuse myself on this, so Ms. Grass is gonna take over as chair.
Okay, the next item is B3, 580 Savannah Highway, Moreland, Council District 9, TMS number 421-03-00-178, zoned SR1. Request use variance after the fact from section 54-203 to allow a driveway on a property zoned SR1 residential to be used by 2 adjacent commercial properties. Request variance after the fact from section 54-224 to permit an additional driveway for properties located within the Savannah Highway Overlay Zone. The owner is EMT Properties LLC. The applicant is Ellis Lessman, legal counsel for property owner. Mr. Batchelder.
580 Savannah Highway is a residential property on the corner of Savannah Highway and Parish Road in West Ashley. It's part of the Moreland neighborhood and located right here, zoning map. It has a house on it, and the house actually faces Parish Road. And these 2 properties next door are also residentially zoned, but they're within the Savannah Highway Overlay Zone. And what that zone allows is office use of these residentially zoned properties. And that overlay district, I think it includes almost all of the properties along this side of Savannah Highway, with the exception of 580 Savannah Highway. And that is because this is a residential property that faces Parish Road. And it's not, the house is not situated where it would even be able to comply with the overlay district parking requirements, which say the parking has to be on the side and the rear of the house. So it was never rezoned and would not be rezoned into that overlay zone. But The owners of these properties went forward and constructed a driveway across this portion of 580 Savannah Highway to allow another means of egress and ingress into their parking area back here. And because they have one driveway that comes out to Savannah Highway right here. And it's that driveway that is the issue before you. So I'll just go through these slides. This is aerial view of this property. These are the two office buildings. This is a house that was converted. This is a new building that was built. And then you see the parking area back here. You also see the driveway right here between these two buildings that comes out to Savannah Highway. So they did this back in 2020, I believe, and the city learned about it and then sought to take them to livability court for doing this without complying with city zoning laws. And it ended up in circuit court. The circuit court judge said, wait a minute, why are we hearing this? You haven't even applied for a variance. So he suspended that proceeding and said, go, if you're gonna do this, you need to apply for a variance first, and the board needs to make a decision one way or the other, and then that record would potentially come back to the judge, heard by the judge. So that's what they're doing here, is attempting to get the variance and make it legal from a city perspective. So they filed this application, and it includes lots of photographs that I'll show you and drawings and that sort of thing. That will help illustrate what I've been describing. But they have provided lots of information here about the situation and their driveway solution. Of course, they did get a SCDOT encroachment permit for the driveway because Parish Road is an SCDOT street, not a city street. And they did get that through the DOT. City wasn't aware of it. So they're legal from that standpoint, but they're just not legal from the city standpoint. So they submitted this application. This is the DOT permit for the driveway. This is illustrations that show this is the driveway location right here. So this is that driveway apron in the DOT right of way. And more information. And I'll let the applicant talk about all this stuff if they want, but just cut right to the chase here. Exhibit 3, this is very good photographs to help illustrate the issues that they feel they face on this property. But Stockard Drive and Parish Road are a signalized intersection on Savannah Highway. Those two streets line up, but they don't line up completely because, of course, as you know, Stockard Drive is not your typical street. It's a curved street. It comes off Savannah Highway to curving right of way. And because of that, the intersection and the stop bars for the turn lanes, and they're very different from a typical intersection. And you'll see that in these illustrations. I think that's what they're attempting to show. These photographs, they can go through and explain it, but here is, so this is 580 Savannah Highway right here. And this is Savannah Highway, this is Parish Road. And so these images are kind of moving down Parish Road. This is more, so here's the 580 Parish Road property, parking in front for the residential. So that's the way it's supposed to be used. It's not to be used for any commercial use. And then over here is this new driveway. leads back to the parking lots behind those two office buildings. And this is a view of that driveway looking back towards the parking lots back here. View. And more views that they can explain. And they, the other thing that they did was they hired a traffic engineer to do a study of this and provide information about the from a traffic engineering standpoint. And they, and they'll speak on this, but basically they identified a safety issue, which if we have a good view, I'm going to use their slides right here just to kind of illustrate my position. But so this is a slide that the applicant has provided. And the issue that they've identified is that this stop bar right here, this stop bar for the left turn lanes, that would be left turn traffic coming this way on Stocker, which is also the access for Chadwick. That traffic and the turn lane right there directly conflicts with this driveway, the single driveway for those office buildings. And so that as they've identified creates a safety issue. And without this second driveway on Parish Road, all the traffic entering and exiting those two office buildings will be using that single driveway. And so I agree that that's a safety concern and a unique situation. This is unlike other properties because of this intersection and its relationship to this particular driveway on Savannah Highway. So I think for those reasons, I'm of the opinion that the variance to allow this after the fact driveway to remain on Parish Road should be approved. And these are two conditions that I think are appropriate. One, that the 572 Savannah Highway LLC and 576 Savannah Highway LLC, those are the owners of those two office properties, that they will exercise their best efforts to not allow direct access to these properties from the eastbound vehicles on Savannah Highway. That those would be the vehicles that would be turning left off Savannah Highway across the westbound lanes to get into this property, and that they would install no left turn signs on the stop sign, which is at that driveway for the vehicles exiting that driveway. So on the opposite side of the stop sign, there would be a no left turn sign. And likewise, for the vehicles exiting the property, they could install a no left turn sign there as well to, again, indicate people don't try and turn left out of that driveway and go across the two westbound lanes, the center lane, to get to the eastbound lanes of Savannah Highway. That's, again, that's dangerous. It conflicts with the intersection turning movements.
That's coming out of the existing driveway or?
That's
the new
coming out of the
driveway?
existing driveway
Existing
on Savannah Highway.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the second condition would be that EMT Properties, the owner of 580 Savannah Highway, will apply to the city within 45 days to change the address of the 580 Savannah Highway property back to a Parish Road address, which is what it originally had until a prior owner went through the very loose process that the city used to have back in the early 2000s to change the address of the Parish Road property to a Savannah Highway property. And that I think would be beneficial because it would clearly show that that property is part of the neighborhood, residential neighborhood, not part of the commercial properties along Savannah Highway. So those are the two conditions that I think are appropriate to attach to a recommendation for, or a motion for approval of this variance. The second variance has to do with the fact that the overlay district properties are only supposed to, well, they're not supposed to have any additional driveways beyond what exists. Because that whole idea in the overlay zone was to allow these properties along Savannah Highway to be converted to office uses, limited commercial uses, but not with changes that would affect the appearance from the street. So if you have one driveway on your property, you got to stick with one driveway. You have two driveways, you can keep the two driveways, but that was the whole idea behind the overlay zone, was to not encourage big changes to those properties, no parking in the front yard, that sort of thing. So that the appearance of the properties as residential properties would still be maintained. And that was done back when these properties were suffering. These properties along Savannah Highway were becoming run down. The homeowners didn't want to live there. People didn't want to buy them. So what the overlay district allowed was for investments into these properties, get them fixed back up, and it's worked well. It's worked very well. So that's the reason for the second variance, because those commercial properties are not allowed to have this driveway across 580 Savannah Highway. So that's my explanation on that. But I think it's appropriate to recommend approval just simply because of the safety issues that these properties and their relationship to Stocker Drive have.
I have one question. If it got turned back to change the address to Parish Road, then wouldn't that driveway belong to that residential house?
Well, the driveway is on the property, on the 580 Savannah Highway property, the residential property.
Right, and so if that
But it's
changes
an
the
easement.
address, so
There's
there's
an easement for, that goes to the commercial properties in the back. So
So
they
that
have the right
easement's already-
access.
It's already in place,
Right,
because the parking for the residential house is in front of the house. How
right.
it showed on the picture.
If they had, if the applicant had come to the city prior to doing this work, would this be the same process? that we
Yes,
were going through?
this would be the same process. So in other words, they would be going through the same request, in my opinion, to seek your approval to put the driveway in. But they never did that. They just went ahead and did it. And now we're trying to go back and deal with that situation. We've been trying to get to this point for a while. So,
Okay, is there anyone present opposed to the application? Okay, we'll hear from y'all in a minute. Is the owner applicant here?
Yes, Madam Chair, Ellis Leesman on behalf of EMT Properties. And so I'll speak to the application. Also, Andrew Eagle, professional engineer, is here. He's going to speak to the safety issues first on behalf of the applicant.
Good evening, everyone. Again, Andrew Eagle, professional engineer with DRMP. We were hired to look at the traffic operations for this site. Can we go to the next slide, please? So just give some context of general location of the site. I'm sure y'all know it better than I do. Next slide, please. So we're at, again, Savannah Highway and Parish Road, signalized intersection. was showing the different parcels there. I think we kind of already gone through this a little bit. Next slide, please. Again, this one shows in a little bit more detail. It shows the hatched area is the Savannah Highway overlay, which is on both sides of Savannah Highway towards the, I'm gonna call it the east, plan east on here. I'll also note 580 is the residential, and then 604 on the other side of Parish Road is actually zoned with the RO, residential office
Yes.
use as well. And then it switches back to residential after that. Next slide. Just some general characteristics of the roadways. Savannah Highway is a principal arterial. It carries a lot more traffic. It's more of a regional roadway. Parish Road is a local road. 5 lanes on Savannah Highway versus the 2-lane Parish Road. Speed limits are not far off. Savannah Highway is at 35 miles per hour. And then the volumes, this is daily vehicular trips, daily volume. So 37,000, a little bit over that on Savannah Highway, and about 1,350 on Parish Road. So quite a big difference in the amount of volume that these two roads are carrying. I can continue on, please. So we did some traffic counts out there, just what's coming in and out of the driveways. Typically, we would look at the peak hour. We'll count for 2 hours in the morning, 2 hours in the afternoon, and find what is that peak hour in there. This actually is showing the full counts coming in 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon. And that's showing the use of the commercial, call it the commercial driveway on Parish Road that's there now, and also the existing driveway on Savannah Highway. So again, there's only 14 vehicles entering in the AM and exiting. In the PM peak hour, there's 4 vehicles entering the site, the 2 office parcels, and then 19 exiting. One thing I'll point out on this is if you look at the exiting traffic, that would be the 4 and 12 exiting onto Parish Road, and the 2 and 1 exiting onto Savannah Highway. It's clear from the counts that people trying to exit the site are much more comfortable using Parish Road to exit. Got 16 vehicles exiting that way versus the 3 exiting onto Savannah Highway. Can you on to the next slide, please? So this is some of the existing access characteristics. Again, we're about 65 feet between the existing driveway on Savannah Highway and the stop bar for the signal. SCDOT's driveway manual notes that you shouldn't have driveways or access points within what's called the functional area of the intersection. So Savannah Highway and Parish Road intersect at kind of a point, but you've got to look beyond just the area within the intersection. You've got to look on each leg of how far back the cars queue or start to make movements to get into left turn lanes. So the driveway is well within the functional area of that signal. There's no left turn lane for vehicles entering from Savannah Highway. There's a stripe as a left turn lane to turn onto, remember the name of the road, Stockbridge, thank you. There's a left turn lane there that then turns into a 2-way left turn lane down the middle of Savannah Highway, but there would be vehicles stacked in the left turn lane going to the signal, which doesn't allow anybody to stop turning into the site. And this, existing access, vehicles would have to cross 3 lanes to get into the site or out of the site. You can go to the next slide, please. So in comparison of what's being proposed on Parish Road, seeking the variance there to allow that access, that drive is 120 feet from the stop bar at Parish Road. I would not expect that to be within any of the queues for vehicles stopped on Parish Road. There, again, that one has no left turn lane, but it's a 2-lane roadway. And vehicles only cross 1 lane of traffic to enter or exit the site compared to the 3 lanes on Savannah Highway. Next slide, please. And this is really just the variance criteria. I'm not gonna read these word for word, but I'll kind of walk through each one of these. Next slide, please. The site has some exceptional conditions. It's just kind of unlike some of the other parcels in the area. It's located between a local road and a parcel zoned for residential, office, or neighborhood uses. Access for the office parcel is located within the functional area of a signalized intersection. There are driveways for, offices, office uses along Savannah Highway, but this particular one is within that functional area of a signalized intersection, making it unique from others. Also, no left turn lane is provided for vehicles entering the site, and access through the parcel, through parcel 580, the residential parcel will provide a safer solution than the existing conditions out there. Next slide. This criteria, again, do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Other parcels aren't located by a local road or can provide a safer access to a non-residential property. Next slide. So this criteria is in regards to, restrictions that are coming into play with not allowing the variance. If the commercial driveway is not allowed to be on 580 Savannah Highway, the residential lot, then the access to the other 2 office lots would be less safe. You're effectively restricting the utilization of those commercial properties by not providing a safer egress for them. And the last bullet point, if the restriction results in an unnecessary and avoidable increase in risk, it's unreasonable. And then finally, the last slide there, number 4 of the criteria. The authorization of the variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good. 580 Savannah Highway, the property owner there has already agreed with the access. They've allowed the easement through their property. The access does not affect any other properties other than ones in question, 580 Savannah Highway and the 2 office lots seeking that access. The access does not change the character of the district. There's all, let's see. And then lastly, the last 2, by increasing traffic safety, the granting of the use variance would actually serve the public good. You're making something safer rather than less safe. Trying to provide a solution rather than just going with, well, it was allowed there, so it stays. I know that happens a lot where just because the driveway was allowed 50 years ago, it doesn't make sense for it to be there today. And then lastly, no commercial establishment is being proposed on 580 Savannah Highway. That concludes my findings, and I'd be glad to answer any questions should y'all have.
Does anybody have any questions?
I do have one question. So the owner of 580, before the driveway was put in, you all obtained and he agreed to an easement for y'all to put the driveway in.
Yeah, I can certainly address that. Absolutely. Yes.
Thank you.
Could you put in the slide that shows the stop bars and the red lines with the differences? Ms. Richards, yes, there's a recorded easement that's been recorded for the driveway here on 580. There is some affiliation of ownership between the parcels. So I wanted to clarify that for you. So now there've also been some changes. You'll probably hear things about Crescent Homes and things like that from the folks from Moreland who they safeguard their neighborhood, and I absolutely respect that. So Crescent Homes is an office, as Lee mentioned, is in a newer structure that is a brand new and a beautiful building. Not a brand new, I should say. It's a new and it's a beautiful building. 576, which was a mortgage lending business, that was dilapidated and abandoned. It's been completely rehabilitated. The Crescent Homes has sold its assets to another company called Dreamfinder Homes. So this is actually no longer the active site of Crescent Homes. Crescent Homes has sold its assets, and you'll see things change around town. If you look at billboards, you'll see that Dreamfinders is now the asset. So the actual number of cars that are here are decreased from where they were. But I'll talk about the issue. So in a minute that because I personally have tried to use this driveway, and I can personally speak to it in some more detail. But there is a driveway here that has an encroachment permit and has an easement. And I always have really enjoyed working with Mr. Batchelder and Ms. Ashby. And so there is some background here. So what I wanted to explain as to why this is an after the fact issue as opposed to coming to you originally. We believe that with a encroachment permit and with an easement, that is allowed right, that someone can say, yes, you need access through my property. I'm allowed to allow you access through my property. This building, this house at 580, it's residential. There are nursing students that live there. There's not a hot dog stand there. There's not a dry cleaners. There's not a gas station. There's no business that's there. There's no business being proposed. So the idea that this is a residential property, yes. So the dispute was, does the fact that a car comes across a property that's going to visit a business, does it make this a commercial property? Or is it still just like it was with the 4 nursing students that live there, that has an easement where a vehicle is allowed to pass so that they can use, and who hasn't done this? So that they can use a stop signal, a turn signal, a stoplight, as opposed to trying to manage this. So there was I believe, a legitimate dispute or difference of opinion that was the matter of a proceeding, because we were being given livability tickets that said, well, you can't have 2 driveways in the Savannah Highway Overlay Zone. This property is not in the Savannah Highway Overlay Zone, so we didn't believe that applied. The driveway is here. It touches that, but it's not on that. These 2 properties actually have 1 driveway, a shared driveway. This one here has 2, and this one down here has 2. There's a lot of properties that actually have 2 driveways in the Savannah Highway Overlay Zone. This one has 1, a shared driveway that's right in the middle of this, what again, functional area. And as Mr. Eagle explained, driveways aren't allowed. They aren't supposed to be even allowed in the functional area of an intersection. So what we have is 3 properties, now a total of 2 driveways, and a difference of opinion as to whether that constituted a commercial use of this parcel. Again, where people are living, different from running an office there, running a business there, running a retail store there, right? Was that a commercial use? And did this constitute a second driveway on this property when this is not even in the overlay zone and this property is not subject to the same restriction? So when we were in front of Judge Roger Young, what he said, well, did you apply for the variance? We said, well, we don't believe that we needed one. He said, well, as the city raised what's called exhaustion of administrative remedies as a defense, he said, well, go ask for it. And he said, I think they should grant it, but go ask for it. And then we'll figure out, then you will have exhausted your administrative remedies. So that is a bit of the background of why we're here and to give you the applicant's perspective. And I appreciate Mr. Batchelder's working with us on the years and his explanation for it. So let me get back to the issue. Y'all are from here, you know this. So anybody driving through Savannah Highway, it's frustrating. So you've got cars that are queued up here. And so if you're trying to turn out of this intersection, you basically can't. Because either the traffic is so continual that you can't get a word in edgewise. Some people might be going fast, some people might be going slow, or when this red light is red, the cars are stacked up past it. Again, the functional area of the intersection, so you can't get out. Well, now let's try to turn left to go back again to the peninsula out of here. All right, well, either there's 2 lanes coming here at whatever speeds people are coming, you're trying to turn left. There's 2 lanes coming here, plus there's people trying to assume the speed of traffic from Stocker turning right. So you've got to deal with these vehicles coming this way, and these vehicles coming that way. Anybody might remember the game Frogger, right? And when the video game where you're trying to navigate all these different things going at you in different directions. The normal safety you'd have would be a median, right? You could, okay, I can get to the turn lane. And then I can try to get into these eastbound lanes of Savannah Highway. Well, because of Stocker Drive, the median lane is actually the turn lane for Stocker. So people who are turning left, there is no median. People are turning left here into going Stocker. So now you have fast traffic or queued cars waiting for the stoplight. You have slower traffic and queued cars coming at you. So as you're trying to turn left, literally head on into other vehicles. You can't do it. So then you have to be like, okay, well, can I get past all 3 of those cars? And if I can do it, am I also going to be able to miss the cars turning right off of Stocker? And I'm going to be able to miss the cars either continually flowing from here, or the people who have just gone through the motor mile and who now are like, well, gosh, now the light's green, I'm going. I've dealt with that intersection. It's unsafe. And that's why we're asking for the variance again at the judge's direction and with the city's cooperation, if we've worked with them, because that's an unsafe condition. Now, when these properties were laid out, I think those houses probably go back to the 1930s, 1940s. It's a very different situation. And this is now, they were once residential, but this is law firm, chiropractic wellness center, very large church, very large Catholic church with a school, gas stations, yield fashion, shopping centers. It's an area that by its very nature is mixed use. So what we have then again is an ask for a variance, but again, the variance criteria would normally be set up to say, okay, well, that's a residential property. Are you asking to convert it to a restaurant or to a gas station or to a store or something that might have a lot of parking constraints and other impacts that this doesn't have? But again, that's the nature of it. But what we've done is come before, not to ask to open a business, but just to be able to ask to use this driveway with an easement onto a state road where the state has granted an encroachment permit so that vehicles can now, when the light turns green, you turn left, no worries. Compared to this situation, which is unsafe. And so that's the purpose of the variance request. So if we look at the, so I consider it a safety use. We're asking to be able to make a safety use of that as opposed to a commercial use. Yes, do these people in their mind, are they going home? Well, yes. They're leaving work and they're going home, or they've left home to come to work. They may have an idea of that they're going to a job, but they aren't buying or selling anything. They aren't parking on that property. They aren't engaged in commerce on that property. They're just trying to get back and forth without having to deal with the hazard that's presented by that shared driveway that's in its location from back in the day when the property was originally built. So as far as the variance criteria, are there extraordinary and exceptional conditions? There are. You have a shared driveway that's in the functional area of an intersection that serves 37,000 cars a day. There's no median. There's no safe way to turn left out of that property. The way that either of those properties, the way that you can turn left safely is here. And the only way that you can do that, the exceptional condition is that there is a driveway there that can be used. It's the one way for that hazard to be avoided. So, those are the extraordinary and exceptional conditions. There are also the same conditions that do not apply generally to other property in the vicinity. Now, if this property had, and Mr. Batchelder explained why this property was not included as part of the Savannah Highway Overlay Zone. But these are, basically from, and Lee can correct me, and I think there's a map, but from here to, West Harrison, I believe that all of those are. I believe that the property that's similarly situated as far as the intersection between West Harrison and Savannah, I think it may be part of the Savannah Highway Overlay Zone. This one was left out. So again, if it weren't, this process wouldn't be necessary, because then the idea of just being able to go across that property on a driveway, to the extent that that is a commercial use, we wouldn't have to actually make the application, because this property, just like the other ones all along this block, would be part of the overlay zone already, but it's not. So that's one of the reasons why the conditions don't apply. This is also the one property that has its driveway in the functional area of this intersection, so that it has to deal with trying to turn left into a turn lane where vehicles are physically facing you. Because if you're not turning left by this point, that means you're going straight into this. It just doesn't work. That the lack of safety of that situation is apparent. So it's an unworkable situation. Look, fortunately, there aren't accidents every day, but it's hazardous, and there have been accidents. This situation is the one way that it's avoided. So would strict application of the ordinance unreasonably restrict utilization of the property? Okay, so when we look at reasonable, that's why I brought up the fact we're not asking to open a business, right? We're just asking to be able to make a safety use of a driveway with an encroachment permit and an easement. So if the ordinances are interpreted such as to preclude a safer way to get to Savannah Highway, when it doesn't create detriment, again, the driveway has been in use. Mr. Eagle gave you some traffic counts, and I can tell you, those traffic counts already are a little lower, because this is no longer one of the 75 largest home builders in the country operating out of that building right now. It has sold its assets. So there are still people there. It's not abandoned. But that business that was there, the traffic counts as they would be today would be less than the ones that were shown in that data from before the asset sale occurred. So when we look at whether there's an unreasonable utilization, we're not saying the property is unusable. You can still go there. You can still take a risk. You can try to make sure, or you can come to work at 7 a.m. and leave at 7 p.m. so that you don't have to worry about as many vehicles. I guess there's ways that you could do it. So it's not like a situation where you might be asked, well, we got to move this tree, or we got to have some setback relief, or else we can't build anything. It's not that situation. But in this instance, it's unreasonable to not allow for this safety use to be done under the circumstances, if you're going to strictly apply that as a commercial use. And then again, finally, would the variance be a substantial detriment to adjacent property or the public good? It would not. And so this here is a law firm with a driveway onto Parish Road, the Torres Law Firm. It's an immigration firm. You can see that the driveways are almost across from each other. This one's a little closer to Savannah Highway. Again, it's a gravel drive. It's traversed by a limited number of vehicles. And again, by allowing for an increased safe way for people, again, residents of residents of Charleston, to be able to come and go from these businesses, whether that's where they work or whether it's where they're visiting, for them to be able to do so safely and to avoid accidents. And for anybody who's driving along here, for them not have to face the hazard of someone who might be trying to get out of here because they need to figure out some way to exit that driveway. It's safer for all concerned. So it is not a detriment to the public good. It's an enhancement of the public good. Again, that the DOT is approved, and that the property owner is approved through an easement. So for those reasons, we'd ask that the variance be granted. And as a last matter, and I appreciate the city's staff recommendation of approval. As to the first condition that Mr. Batchelder mentioned, would absolutely are in support of that, would discourage left-hand turns being made. But don't really need to discourage it because people already know common sense allows for you to not want to turn left there when you could actually use here. We will absolutely accept that condition. Insofar as the request that the property address be changed, and Lee explained that history. Lee, I may be wrong. I thought that the property originally had a Savannah Highway address. They got changed to Parish Road and they got changed back. I could be wrong. And so I'm gonna, Lee, you know more about that than I do. But here's what I will say. Here's what I will say. 604 Savannah Highway, 580 Savannah Highway. If you go up Parish Road, well, so let me go with the document that I have here. Go down West Harrison Road, right, which is the street basically right here. Right. On the eastern side of West Harrison Road, you'll find 498 Savannah Highway. It's not a West Harrison Road address. On the property on the west side, on the northwestern corner of West Harrison and Savannah Highway, that's the next slide. That's 528 Savannah Highway. The subject property, as we've mentioned, if you go to the third page of what I've handed to you. .580 Savannah Highway. Property on the northwestern corner of Parish Road and Savannah Highway. 604 Savannah Highway. All right. If you go to the next page, okay, I see now, I may have these slightly out of order, but, oh, sorry, no, that's correct. So the next page is 604 Savannah Highway, the Torres Law Firm. So if we go to the next page, all right, this takes us down Parish Road to St. Andrews Boulevard. The property that's at the intersection of Parish Road and St. Andrews Boulevard on what we'll call the southeastern corner of the intersection. It's designated 561 St. Andrews Boulevard. It's not designated Parish Road. The property on the, if you go to the next page, the property that is on the southwestern corner of Parish Road and St. Andrews Boulevard is designated as 609 St. Andrews Boulevard. So what I'm trying to communicate here is all these properties that are on these entry roads in and out of Moreland bear Savannah Highway addresses, bear St. Andrews Boulevard addresses. And so the last two were Godfrey Park Place that intersects with St. Andrews Boulevard. You see the first one, it's designated 521 St. Andrews Boulevard. And the next one on the southeastern corner of Godfrey Park Place at St. Andrews Boulevard, 513 St. Andrews Boulevard. So all of those bear addresses of the main road, of the arterial road. They don't bear the addresses of the internal road. So respectfully, we'd ask that that second condition not be applied. The owner does not want to change their address, and respectfully, we believe that they shouldn't have to. So with that being said, and I'm very thankful for your patience and for the time that is taken to make the presentation, but this is something that's important. This is something we've been working with the city on for a long time. The circumstances are such that a variance is appropriate. Why not allow this for purposes of safety? And I appreciate city staff's recommendation that it be accomplished. The variance criteria are met again because this is not something where we're trying to establish a commercial business on a property. We're just trying to eliminate a safety hazard, which we believe that the variance criteria would support. So, thank you. I would ask that the, variance be granted again, first as to, this very limited commercial use, and would ask that you be very clear that that's the only commercial use that is being allowed. No other commercial use is being requested. And secondly, to the extent that this would constitute a second driveway, even though it's not located in the Savannah Highway overlay zone, it's located outside of it. To the extent that that would be considered a second driveway on either of those properties, we'd ask for that variance as well, just to make sure that there is not a defect with the ability to, again, safely gain access and to exit those properties. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
Just one question. Are 572 and 576 the same? What, are they two separate businesses?
Yes. Yes, so 576 is a home mortgage lending business called
Oh,
Settlement
sorry, you
Home
said that.
Lending.
Okay.
And then
572
572
is
has
the-
been Crescent. Now, there's a smaller custom home builder there, Flex.
But they share the parking in the back.
They do share the parking in the back. And again, they are separate businesses, Ms. Richards, but they are not complete strangers to each other.
And then the owner of 580,
Yes. Is,
Not-
it's a single member entity. It's called EMT Properties. So, again, so that's Edward or Ted Terry. So Ted Terry was the owner of Crescent before its assets were sold. He is the owner of the property, EMT Properties. He is the owner of 572. Again, 570 is owned by 572 Savannah Highway LLC. 576 Savannah Highway LLC. So there is, and which would also be as part of, I can represent on behalf of those parties, that one of Lee's conditions did ask that the owners of these properties discourage use of this driveway for left-hand turns, and I can represent to you, I represent those parties, they would agree to that condition. Again, the owner of 580 EMT Properties is asking not to be required to change his address. Did that answer your question? Thank you. Any further?
Well, I do have one
Yes.
question. So was there any discussion about discouraging a right-hand turn out of the newly created drive? So that there, people are not going through the neighborhood? Was that anything you looked at, Mr.
Oh.
Eagle?
Were you asking late? So, I mean, I think that, again, the number of vehicles is limited. If you look at the traffic data, and if you look at the percentage contribution. Andrew, do you remember off?
You can go to the slide that has the kind of stick diagram with the volumes on it. We can kind of look at what's going that direction.
You had it, Lee, I think.
Oh, I did.
One of the arrows.
Right there.
Yeah.
So 0 vehicles going that direction in the morning and 4 going that way in the PM. 4 are entering from Parish Road that direction in the AM and 0 entering from that way in the PM. So I'm looking at this 4 that's coming down Parish Road and entering, that's just in the AM and none in the PM. No traffic going up Parish Road in the AM and 4 going that way to the PM. And that's again over a course of 2 hours.
And that's usually peak hours. Yeah.
And how many cars are typically at this site? Did you figure that out? Like how many are typically there during the day, parking and coming and going?
We didn't look at the full day coming in and out, but this is capturing what's coming during the AM and PM peaks of like commuter traffic times.
Does anybody else want to speak in favor of the application? So we'll take comments from those in opposition of the application, if y'all want to come up and speak.
you want us to all come? and-
No, just one by one, yeah.
Hello, I'm Marion Greeley and I live at 701. So I'm in the middle of this. Parish Road does not have any sidewalks. We've been asking for sidewalks, but there are no sidewalks. We have about 8 children who go to St. Andrew's Elementary School, math and science. They walk down Parish Road in the road. Now, this is going in the morning, 8-ish, and then coming home in the afternoon, 3-ish. And I am concerned because Parish Road, even though it's just a 2-lane road, has quite a lot of traffic. We've got people, we used to call it the cut through. I think people still call it the cut through from 61 to 17. We have school buses. We have just regular, we have signs up that say no trucks, please. That's pretty much it. But still, it is all residential. It never occurred to me that the house on the corner would become commercial. That was not an issue. My concern is having that driveway across the street at the law firm. That is their only driveway. That's their only way in and out of their property. The driveway for, I call it Crescent Homes because that's what I call it, has this driveway that they say it's a safety issue. And of course, all of our streets are a safety issue. But if there's light is red, because I drive down Parish Road every day and take a right or left on Savannah Highway to go to work. And when the light is red, cars let other people in from all of these driveways, because all of Savannah Highway has every single one of them. All the commercial properties have a driveway, and people are very nice and let people in. So that, and I don't know anybody who would take a left on Savannah Highway to go through all of that traffic. And I think by putting a left-hand, no left turn, which is what several businesses down like Chick-fil-A does, says no left turn, that would alleviate a lot. I guess that's my big thing. I don't think they need that driveway. I don't think they need that driveway. And especially now, if Crescent Homes isn't there, they don't have as much traffic going in and out. Why do they need that driveway? That's all I have to say. But I live there and have lived there for 13 years. So, okay, any questions to me?
No, thank you.
My name is Peggy Bone. I live in Borland. I have a question more than anything else. So the 3 properties in a row are all owned by the same people. The house on the corner and the next 2, the easement. And then they've got 2 properties where they've got parking lot and the traffic is coming through the other piece of property that they own on the corner, the Parish Road property. What stops them from buying 2 more houses with parking lot and then coming all the way down? 5
can't.
houses in a row.
You can't combine more than 2 properties in the overlay zone.
Okay,
So
but the
2
parking
properties,
that you-
these 2 work, but they couldn't add a 3rd.
So really, they've combined 3 by putting the driveway through there.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about for the office use. Can't combine more than 2 properties.
Okay, that's in the overlay zone that they couldn't combine. All right, but if they did it, they could, people for the parking, they could do it? I mean,
No.
what stops them from doing
No.
it? I mean, they're not combining two buildings, but what stops them from adding to the parking?
No reason.
Okay. All right. That's what I have one other issue. I was under the understanding a while back that they had changed the property to Savannah Highway, and they put a sign up that said it was Savannah Highway, but then they had, when Don Evans was our city council member, that they had already changed it back to Parish Road. That's what she told us.
The address? No, it had never been changed back to Parish Road.
Okay.
Ready to move this? I'm Andrea Woodfield, and I live in Moreland, and thank you guys for letting us speak tonight regarding two after-the-fact variance appeal requests for 580 Savannah Highway and the three properties involved owned by Crescent Homes. So it's 572, 576, and 580. May not all be under the name Crescent Homes, but they are all very interrelated. Moreland consists of around 200 homes bordered by the Ashley River on one side. It is dissected by Highway 61 in the middle, and then it's bordered on the other side by Highway 17. I moved there about 12 years ago, and since arriving there, quickly learned how desirable all that land is to businesses and developers. So we knew from the get-go that we needed to protect the neighborhood and its visitors through diligence and zoning rules. So we've been very active with everyone here, so thank you. During the same period, we became very familiar with Crescent Homes and its desire to expand its footprint on Savannah Highway, no matter the impact on zoning rules or on Moreland. Before they even purchased 606 Parish, which is 580 Savannah Highway, they were told that it was a single family residence and could not be rezoned. They bought it anyway. They wanted the zoning changed, and we opposed, Moreland opposed. Since then it has languished in disrepair as a rental property with 5 cars parked in the front because now there is no parking in the drive. It has not been maintained, and to be builders, it's always amazed me that they don't take care of their own properties in our neighborhood. Also, the safety defense that's going on, you know, I appreciate that with the cars. Where I live during rush hour, main, peak hours, I have to take a right onto 61. I take that right, and then I turn around to get to where I need to go. It's just the way it is. Charleston is treacherous these days. It's not just at that driveway. It is everywhere. And for all the other properties up and down 17. Then in the summer of 2020, Moreland residents saw a driveway being cut onto Parish Road, connecting a single family residence on Parish to 2 business entities which fronted Savannah Highway, 576 and 572. We immediately notified the city, and it became clear that the city was not even aware of the strike either. So Moreland agrees this variance request is truly after the fact. Through this variance request process, Moreland learned that Crescent Homes had given itself an ingress-egress easement from the single-family residence to 2 business entities. And this egress and ingress easement will stay with that property, I guess, forever at 580 Savannah Highway, which is problematic in itself. They also obtained a permit for a drive from SCDOT, which maintains Parish Road. I will say here, there is a difference between traffic counts on Highway 17 and Parish Road. That's because Parish Road is in the middle of a neighborhood. It's not comparable to 17 or 61. And if you're not aware, Parish Road is a major Moreland thoroughfare for school children walking or biking to St. Andrew's School of Math and Science. My father always said pedestrians, so that's why that just came out. Pedestrians and cyclists, as well as a heavily traveled cut through between 61 and 17. Adding more traffic to an already congested neighborhood residential street with no sidewalks should never be taken lightly. And since Crescent Homes did not go through the city and they went through SCD and DOT, we never had an opportunity to speak. So there was no public comment about how this would affect our neighborhood. And I will also say here that the house across the street from 580, which is the law firm, that property was grandfathered in years ago because historically, if I'm not correct, it was a place where, almost like a hotel, right? Whatever they used to call that. A guest house. So it historically had been a business property, therefore it was grandfathered in. Also, the reason why 606 Parish was never in the overlay was because we were protecting our borders through the overlay, Savannah Highway overlay, because we had to protect ways in. We wanted to prevent a slippery slope of businesses creeping in and taking over all of our houses in our neighborhood. So that is why it was not in the overlay. So let me make sure I added points here. Hold on one second. After hearing all the safety concerns and that it was not a business, I truly believe this is only a means to an end. They will come back and ask for rezoning. They've done it before. They have presented architectural plans before. Moreland has always stood strong. So I just don't believe it's not a means to an end, because I truly believe it is. So Moreland asked that the approval of these after the fact variance requests be denied. At the very, very least, deferred until Moreland, Crescent Homes, and the city can meet so that we're all better informed with what these variance requests are and what the conditions mean and what the associated impacts on Moreland would be, so that we can all be better neighbors. Thank you for your time, and please consider the residents' party. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak?
Good evening, I'm Carol Lower, I live in Moreland. I just wanted to talk about a couple of things. My daughter's here, 7 years old. Pedestrians were never talked about during the safety issue, and it's a big issue because we've got crosswalks here that are for walking. You know, the lights come on for pedestrian walking, but then that ends. So when the children start walking down the street, UPS trucks, whatever's coming out, it's not as visible as the law firm parking lot where you can see the cars, and you know if they start moving or a person gets in the car, that you know you have to watch out. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. I just think that the applicant should have met with, you just heard from Andrew, our president, that should have met with our community and discussed this, and they never have. So it's just you know, not working all together. And the traffic light here turning's never really been an issue that I've seen. I've lived over in Moreland over 20 some years. Most of the people that are on Stocker pull in off of Wesley Drive, that shortcut into their neighborhood. They don't make a left-hand turn there, so don't really see it. The timing of the intersection is long because of that crosswalk and the signals for pedestrians, but then it ends because we don't have any sidewalks. I think the last thing was that this applicant and the prior one both have been trying to make it commercial in the neighborhood's view. So just like Andrea said, it seems like it's a progression. Thank you for listening to me. I hope you at least defer it so we can all get together, but I would really appreciate a denial at this point. Thank you.
Joe Rodder, I live in Moreland area. I live on Woodward Road, like Andrea, and I could cite probably 100 other sections that are just as treacherous as this. In fact, the one that we come out of, mentioned before, out West Harrison, eating on the St. Andrews Boulevard, turning left is not pleasant at all. So this is not unique in any way.
a question that I think it may have been addressed is, if you have this drive coming in here now, and it takes care of these properties here, what's to prevent it from keeping on going down this way? And taking up the chiropractic, helping and all those others, bringing in that much more traffic off of Pierce Road. As to the houses on Parish and St. Andrews Boulevard that have St. Andrews Boulevard addresses, those houses are clearly fronting on St. Andrews Boulevard. This one clearly fronts on Parish. Yeah, I know you've been there, but if you take a look at that house, it's the side of the house that is out here, not the front of the house. So just for clarification. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak? Would I like to speak in
Thank you.
rebuttal?
I'll be brief. I appreciate all the time that you give and the time that y'all give as public servants for this. So I salute kids that are walking to school across Savannah Highway and across the situation, whether they're walking or biking. That's, but there have been no issues. And there's no sidewalks, and that's something that we're not going to be able to address with that. But as far as safety, that's something to where, if we've got, yes, there'll be people who will be crossing this road with 37,000 cars on it, whether that's by bike or by road or whatever. But what this situation involves, and again, and I can tell you personally because I've lived it. I don't know that any of the folks that have come from the neighborhood have ever tried to use this driveway. I've done it. So I'm telling you straight up what that experience is like. You can't let anybody, no one can let you in because they're already queued up. And if they do let you in, well, that doesn't mean that these folks aren't going 45 miles an hour. And what's unique about it, and it doesn't affect this property or this property or this property, well, it's never happened that all those have been combined. And again, as I mentioned to you, Crescent Homes is sold. They're actually not in this building's still in use. This building's still in use. But the idea that this is all going to get consolidated, these homes are protected. They've been there for 70 years. You can't just combine them, as Lee mentioned. And so what we come back to is there's a safety issue supported by engineering judgment, supported by my own personal observations and experience from it. And walking pedestrians, this year, people stop. There's a limited number of vehicles that are using that road. There is not an issue that's been caused as to pedestrian safety there. And the reason why there was a prior application for a commercial zoning is that's what we were told. In order to be able to use a driveway, you need to rezone the property or you need to try to get into the Savannah Highway overlay zone. And we knew that if we had done that, we tried to make it part of the Savannah Highway overlay zone so that it could be a business. We knew the type of objection and opposition that would create. And you've seen that. And so what we're trying to do is just to have the ability to make a safety use of a driveway. And I don't think that there's any evidence or opposition to show that this is, no one is able to say, no one able to look you in the eye and tell you that this is not an unsafe condition. It is absolutely an unsafe condition. And the one way for that to be repaired or to be avoided is here. And it is not creating danger. It's been in use, again, based on our position that the SCDOT encroachment permit and the easement, which again is between these properties, not this property. And then there's a multifamily. The idea that there's going to be a string of combined properties, there's an apartment complex. There's all these properties are in different ownership. These three properties are not owned. You won't see that Crescent Homes owns any of them. So if we go back and we look at the variance criteria, is it an exceptional situation? Yes. Are the conditions that apply here, do they apply to other properties? They don't. Would it be unreasonable to prevent this property driveway from being used for safety reasons? It would be an unreasonable restriction to prevent that from happening. And does this create the ability for 4 cars to turn right during rush hour and for cars to be able to use that stoplight? Does that create a public harm? It simply doesn't. And again, I appreciate the folks and strength of the neighborhood and their solidarity. But again, this is one where a variance is appropriate. It's a very modest request for a very modest use of an easement and an encroachment permit, for which a variance has been supported by the city and for which we respectfully ask be granted. Thank you.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Before you sit down, I'm kind of confused about the DOT. I understand it's Parish Road is a state road and that's why the driveway was permitted. But did DOT understand that it was going to be an access point to the other properties when they granted the driveway?
So they granted an encroachment permit because in order for there to be a driveway from here to here, that is what the application is. These properties weren't involved in the application. And so because they're not where the driveway is located. So DOT granted a encroachment permit there, and then an easement was granted from this property owner to the next.
Anybody else have any questions? It's actually time for us to close the public portion. Okay. But I don't know, I've kind of deferred to.
No, I think we need to move on.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's, yeah. Sorry about that.
And we need to follow the proper procedures because this isn't litigation, so.
Right.
we
Okay,
don't want-
okay, so now, as I said, we're closing the public portion of the hearing and the board will discuss the issue.
Lee, have you been given any feedback from the city about this?
Yes, so the information that was submitted with the application, which includes a study that the engineer provided, that was forwarded to, and all that information is part of this image overview that was available to the public and posted online. All that information was forwarded to the city's traffic and transportation department, and one of our staff in that department viewed the information, and he came back with in agreement with the engineer's assessment that yes, this is a safety issue, and that the taking away this driveway would create a serious issue right here. So his recommendation was, yes, that this second driveway ought to be approved. He was concerned with the left turns off Savannah Highway into the property and left turns exiting, but
Don't all those properties on Savannah Highway have the same situation?
well, again,
I
I
don't see how
think it's,
this property is different than the other ones.
I think it's the proximity of the driveway here to the stop bar. This is a stop bar for vehicles in the center turn lane who would be turning left onto Stocker and Chadwick. And so vehicles pull up to that bar. Well, that's almost in the exact same spot where a vehicle trying to turn left into this driveway is going to stop. And I don't know about you, but I'd feel very uncomfortable pulling into a center turn lane where there's an arrow pointing in the exact opposite direction that I'm trying to turn. And then you have the potential of a vehicle pulling into the center turn lane to turn left and having to wait while the car turns left in the driveway, and they'd be opposing each other. Visibility becomes maybe an issue at that point. And so I just think that's, and you see all the traffic that does use the second driveway to avoid that situation. And if you take that driveway away, the only option those people would have is to come through that single driveway on Savannah Highway.
Was
So-
there ever any attempt by DOT to modify that intersection to make it safer? I mean, is there?
I don't know that the
ever been any
intersection is
dis-
unsafe. The,
Well,
the
this-
geometry of the intersection is very unusual because Stocker Drive has this angle
Right,
and it's a split median and all that sort of thing. So vehicles coming out of here, I think the bar is so far back, maybe potentially because of that situation. Because they're, you know, you don't want to have conflicts with people waiting to turn left at the light. And
well, I
So-
mean, maybe I used the wrong terminology, but I mean this section of the bar that you're talking about being unsafe. I just wonder if there's ever been any. If
I don't
DOT's
know
ever
if it
addressed.
has. I don't know.
How long has that driveway been there? How long has it been?
This driveway? I don't,
No, not that one, the new one.
2020.
2020.
You don't have any other comments or anybody want to make a motion or?
Well, the only other concern I have is if those businesses change ownership and become something else that would be more impactful. I mean, it sounds like it's been 4 years. And it didn't look like there was so much traffic going in and out. I don't recall anyone in the neighborhood saying that it currently was affecting them.
Is there any parking requirements on those two lots? Is there a number of car parking requirements or?
Well, it's based on the size of the office space in those buildings, and the building on the left is smaller. That's a small house versus the, I think the building on the right is a 2-story building.
And those two properties will always be office uses?
Well, not necessarily. They could go back to residential, but I don't think that's ever gonna happen. I think office is probably likely in the long term.
And then again, your reasoning for changing the address back to Parish Road.
Well, that property, the house faces Parish Road, and it was built to face Parish Road with the front door on Parish Road and the driveway. And so that was the address. I didn't look at the 1974 tax map. You can look at the old county tax maps. And those have addresses for the properties for each property on those maps. And I just know that it was Parish Road. When in the late 80s when I came here, and it was an owner who, after we adopted the overlay zone and started allowing people to rezone properties into that overlay zone, this property was purchased by, this Parish Road property was purchased by, 580 Savannah Highway was purchased by a person who tried to do that. Only he tried to do it without rezoning the property, and it became a violation. We had to pursue that. We, went round and round with him. But one thing that he did that we didn't have any control over, because it was a different office in the city at the time that handled address changes, and they had no standards for how they assigned addresses. So if you wanted to change your address, they'd say, sure. And that's what happened. This person went to that office and was able to get it changed. I don't even think it would meet the requirements that we have today, because for a house facing Parish Road, to have a Savannah Highway address doesn't make any sense. And I don't think we would have allowed the change in the address under the procedures that are in place today. So that's the history about the property that I know.
You know, I'm looking at this Parker survey. I don't know if you can pull it up or not, and, you know, and again, these documents have been changed to be different exhibits. But, you know, when I look at this, I see the request, or I see a request for the curb cut, and I see a fence that it almost appears to be the curb cut going to a fence.
Is it this one or is it the one with the driveway on?
The one that shows,
The actual new driveway?
let's see, slide 38 of 76. Can you see your slide counts? Let's see, the one before it is as a narrative description. The
This
one
one?
after is the
That-
access
this one?
easement.
That one.
Yes.
48, yeah, okay.
So you know that draws me, and I don't want to make assumptions because I don't know the dates and when things may have been added to this. But if I were to look at that and think that's a standalone document, I'd almost sit there and say, wow, that looks like there was a request for a driveway that was going to go to a wooden fence. And then later it was changed, the wooden fence was removed, and then it was joined to the back of the property. I think they had every right to, you know, clearly we're a state of property rights, and you have the right to make those requests. But I'm also sympathetic and empathetic to the neighborhood that these things kept happening around them, and they didn't have or were not consulted or having a voice on how these things happen. And now it's after the fact, all of this has already happened. It's a conundrum of activities that has created a very bad situation. And we're trying to figure out how to do or undo that. So I don't want to make too many presumptions that that's there, but that's what it looks like. That's what it looks like to me. I think it would be fantastic if the property owner would meet with the community, talk to them about this issue. And I don't know if anything can be resolved. I think they could be back here in a week or two with the exact same argument and nothing else resolved. But I don't know, it's kind of how I see it.
Would you like to make a motion?
I'd make a motion to defer
With a request.
with a request that the owner, EMT, or their representatives meet with the neighborhood. And they come back, you know, as soon as they feel like they've reached an understanding or they're a lack of understanding.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No opposition. So the motion is that this issue application will be deferred in order for the property owners applicant to meet with the neighborhood residents in order to discuss, you know, what's going on and potentially just find out more information.
That sounds good.
Okay.
And make the application.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, the final item on our agenda for those patient enough to wait, B4, 205 Romney Street, North Central Council District number 4, EMS number 463-15-02-054 zone DR2F. Requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow the reestablishment of 2 dwelling units duplex with 923 square feet of lot area per dwelling unit, 2,000 square feet are required. requesting a special exception under section 54-110 to allow a two-story rear addition, bedrooms, office, music room that extends a non-conforming 0-foot east side setback 3 feet are required. Requesting a variance from section 54-301 to allow a two-story rear addition with a 0.5-foot west side setback stairs, a 3-foot west side setback house, a 1.5-foot total side setback, and a 67% lot occupancy 3 feet and 10 feet are required. 50% lot occupancy limit is required and 57% is existing. The owner is Pickadoo LLC. The applicant is Susan McAdoo. Mr. Batchelder.
So this is residential property, North Central, and you might recall a few months ago, we dealt with this property in a hearing and request to make alterations to the footprint as this dilapidated house was restored, renovated, saved, basically. It was ready to fall down. And that's the same situation with this house. This is really poor condition, and the applicant has purchased the home and wants to save it and fix it up. And so that's a good thing. And their plans call for enlarging the footprint. But this is an aerial view. Looks like there's no house there, but there is. There's the house, and you can see this is the house next door that we addressed a few months ago. This is the house in question here, also in extremely poor condition. And they want to save it and make some changes. So the existing footprint is shown here. So relatively small on this lot, 57% though, occupancy. And then this is the footprint of the proposed house. The other thing about this applicant is they live right around the corner, about 50 feet away from this property. So they're fixing up their own neighborhood. And so all of this is being done with the idea, I think that they're planning to live there after they finish. And this is the proposed house elevation. And, front porch over here. So this is the addition back here. This is 2 units. Again, it was 2 units before. So reestablishing the 2 units, building the additions, and it requires all these approvals to do that. One sort of different aspect of this is that they want a music room on the back, which is room where music lessons given as they do that. So one of the owners does that. So anyway, these are the floor plans showing the 2 units, very similar to what we did next door. That was reestablishing duplex, 1 unit downstairs, 1 unit upstairs. So that is what's going on. These are letters, people getting their support for this, and been no opposition. We wholeheartedly support this request to save the house and put it back in use.
All right, thank you, Lee. Is there anybody who is here in opposition to the application for 205 Romney Street? Seeing no one in opposition, do we have the owner applicant?
One of the, yes.
All right, anything you'd like to say to the board?
No, I'm excited to get this project going. I don't mean to, let me just stand right here. My name is Tracy Picard. I'm one of the owners of Pickadoo LLC. My girlfriend is the other owner, and she actually plays with the symphony, so she's there this evening, so she had to leave early. Yeah, I'm excited to get this project going. We've had the property for a while, haven't had the funds to be able to do it yet. At this point, we have the funds, so I'm really excited to see it come to fruition.
Right.
Appreciate you guys.
We'll let you know if we have any questions. Thank you. Any questions for Lee? Any questions for the owner? Make a motion. Mr. Grass moves to approve. Mr. Goodwin seconds the motion. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None are opposed. The motion passes unanimously, and the variance, just two variances, right? No special exceptions here.
Two variances and a special.
No, two variances and the special exception for 205 Romney Street are granted. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.